test. All right, test 1, 2, 3. Audio. Seems like audio is fine. That's good. All right, awesome. I am back from my hour break as I promised. Just had to take care of some stuff. Took a little nice hour break though after 4 hours of programming. Not too bad. Definitely, need to take breaks sometimes. Can't just sit on the sea all day, because that obviously is going to cause a lot of issues in the long run. Now, of course, when you're young, I'm in my 20s. Of course, you can get away with, sitting on your ass all day and not having to stretch, but, when you get older, it'll bite you back as you age. So it's always important to take breaks and whatnot. Chi Hong, how are you? Welcome to the stream. Welcome back. Nice to see you here again. Stunt Facts, welcome back. Nezmul, how are you? When do you start payment app? We'll start that soon. Not in this stream though. But as I promised, we will start it this month. But I have a lot more stuff that I want to take care of for this chat app before we move on to a new app. But we will start it soon though. Don't worry. It'll definitely be this week, end of this week, or early next week. So probably this Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. One of those 3 days is when we'll start it. But we're coming really close to the end of this chat, though, as I've said before. Earlier today, I was streaming for 4 hours, as some of you guys were there earlier. And we got a lot of stuff done. Still got a lot more stuff to do. And the whole plan this week is just to really just work on those, those things and get as much as we can done before we call it, before we move on to the next project. So that's the goal of that. Millier, welcome back, man. How are you? Yeah, I'm back, man. How's it going, Millier? What tools will you use for the next app? I don't want to reveal it yet, because there's going to be a lot of disagreement between a lot of people. So I haven't decided yet, to be honest with you. So we'll have to see. Probably we'll use NestJS for the front end, because a lot of people are requesting NestJS for that. But I am open-minded to anything. But I probably won't use Create React App, though. Way too slow when starting up the app. Think about using Vite as the build tool. But, I don't really think we need server-side rendering, to be honest with you. And I just don't really think server-side rendering is really necessary for an app that we need for money transfer. But, I'll do it for fun because people want to see NestJS. So, might as well, do it for educational purposes. I'm not really doing it for building out an actual product. I'm just doing it for fun. And people want to see what you can do with NestJS, so might as well do that, deliver that to other people. But, Next is definitely going to be used for the front end. For the back end, we'll definitely be using not the NestJS API layer. We'll definitely be using a backend framework that I have not decided yet. But we'll definitely use NestJS for the front end. That's 100% decided. But, yeah, MySQL database will still be the same thing, MySQL. Don't think I'll change that. Alright. Let's see. So, yeah, logging out feature was the last thing that we worked on. Let me go ahead and just start up the React app real quick. Vite is the go-to choice. How to talk in my company, and they said that if you don't use Vite, you're crazy. Yeah, it's a great build tool that speeds up. Like, look at how long it takes to load up this React app, If this was with Vite, it would take, like, literally half a second, maybe even less. Not even kidding. So, definitely is the way to go. 100% agree with that. But yeah, I hope you all are having a good Sunday. I mean, it's probably Monday for some of you. I mean, currently, I mean, I live on the West Coast, so it's pretty. It's still, we're pretty behind the rest of the world. There's the West Coast, then there's Hawaii, Alaska, which I think those are like behind like by 5 hours compared to the East Coast. So for some of you guys living in Europe, it's probably already like 7 a.m. for some of you. Oh my god, I have member, but I don't know why I unsubscribed and member gone. Is that what it is? I don't know. I don't know. Like because I think you are a member, and I think you still are a member, but for some reason YouTube is messing up. Like sometimes it just does not display people's members badge next to it, which is really, I don't know what's been going on. Like some people have been having issues like that before, so I don't really know. Did it run out or is the badge just not there? Could just be a YouTube issue. Never liked them. Orchestrating. I don't like Mondays, man, but I have Monday off, so you know I'm happy. I have subscribed before. That's weird. Yeah, I'm not sure. That's really strange. I don't know what's up with YouTube sometimes, but it's okay though. It's okay. Don't worry so much about that. Okay, so yeah, we were working on this logout feature, so it logs us out, and if I try to go back, it's not gonna. It's well, it will go. It will bring us back here, but the goal is to not do this because right now, I don't like how it does that. It's really frustrating because if we can go back there via history API, right? It's not really good. But of course, if I log out, if I go back here, if I click here, of course nothing's gonna happen, right? If I click here, nothing's gonna happen. But we should probably make it so that it actually redirects the user, I think, on all pages. But I don't know why though, because every single one of these pages goes through the authentication guard that we have in our React app. So I don't know why it doesn't just automatically redirect, I guess. Something weird's going on. But these are little things that we can work on to kind of like make the app real. It's the little things that matters the most, But yeah, man, if you guys haven't already, make sure you guys drop that like button. We're at 5 likes right now. 18 people watching. Welcome everyone to the stream. Make sure you guys drop that like button. Let's try to get to 100 likes. I took a break earlier. We were at almost 120. Let's try to get to 100 for this one. Greatly appreciate that. Let's see. Logo feature, I think we can pretty much finish this up. We're done with this already. I'm not going to drag it out too much. So let me just complete that. Okay. Cool. So yeah, we're pretty much, just banging out all of these features one by one. In case you're wondering what I'm drinking, just ice water right now. Nothing crazy. Okay. Let's see. Allow friends. Okay, so I'm gonna add one more thing here that we don't have. So let me. I do have to relog in though. So if we're friends with the user, we probably should also display that. We want to display like an icon on the top to allow them to allow ourselves to add the user to the actual group. That would be a nice feature to have, right? But we'll just work on this right now. Allow only friends to create groups. That should be a pretty easy fix. So basically, allow only friends to create groups. So right now, we're able to add whoever we want to a group. But we only want to make it so that they can actually add their own friends. That's the goal. So we'll pretty much have to fetch all their friends and then filter out the list on the front end, which is, I guess, fine. Because we have, I think I most limit the friends to maybe 100, which is not going to be bad. Like, that's not really a bad payload to send to the user. So it's definitely manageable compared to, like, sending 1,000, sending like 1,000 records to the user. That's not really good, I would say. So That's what we want to do. And we also want to add pagination for messages, which we have not yet worked on, which I kept delaying it constantly. I think I do have a branch that has the pagination there. I believe. We'll have to double check. Let's see. It's definitely somewhere here. Yeah, right over here. On scroll, when we scroll to the top, we basically want to fetch the next X amount of messages. So this is something that we could probably just work on now. I don't think it will take too long. Only problem last time is that we ran into an issue with it fetching the same messages again, which we definitely don't want, right? So we'll have to look at message container. I'm going to copy this real quick. Let's switch back. Are we in the master branch or what? I'm not sure what's going on here, but I should be in the master branch. Oh, I think it's... Yeah, hold on, give me 1 second. Yeah, so let me go over here. Okay, yeah, so we are already technically on the master branch for NestJS app. The React app already has the scroll already, so if I do this scroll to top, let's save that right over there. Now we're not logged in, of course. We have to refresh. Huh. What's going on with this? I've never seen this issue before. I have never seen this issue before. That is very weird. Sometimes these errors just randomly come out of nowhere, and I don't know how to even explain how they even happen. Because this, I didn't really change. Oh, you know what it is? I think it's probably, let's see. Yeah, sometimes I don't like working with branches because it just messes so many things up. I think it's still using a different branch, or I don't even know honestly what's going on. But I switched to a different branch and I switched back, and I think that's what's causing the issue. So I think the way to fix this sometimes is to just delete the dist folder and then rerun the entire app. I think, but sometimes it just gives me these issues. So we'll have to kind of remove that, and maybe we can try rebuilding everything again. We'll see. It could still be using the old branch in the dist folder. I'm not too sure. But I definitely don't like having to drop the database and then recreate it again. That's really annoying sometimes, but it's okay though. Yeah, I don't know why that issue would occur. Maybe you could do a simple yarn build, maybe? Let's try that before we drop the database. Okay. It's definitely something to do with the branch being switched, I think. Duplicate entry for key. Yeah, and these error messages are so hard to debug sometimes. If I Google them in Stack Overflow, it's hard to figure out the actual underlying issue. Yo, what's going on, Derek? Welcome back, man. Good to see you back. Yeah, man, it's long time. I mean, I saw you earlier in the stream, but you know, before that, you know, I haven't seen you for a while, so I hope all is well with you, man. I was in Washington for the past 10 days, 10, 11 days or so. And yeah, it was really fun. You know, I'm back in Arizona now. You know, definitely feels good to be back in the desert. I'm looking forward to it being colder though, because I kind of am sick of the heat. But you know, it's, you know, obviously after some time you just kind of get sick of, you know, the constant heat, constant cold. So you want the weather to switch up a little bit. I know once, you know, I know I'm going to get sick of the cold eventually, and I want it to be, you know, just blazing hot again. So yeah, I probably will just drop the database, to be honest with you. I don't know what's going on with this. I mean, I could probably debug the issue with data grip. Let's see if I can figure out what the problem here is before I drop the whole database. Probably look at the database and see what's going on. Maybe something weird has happened. Let's see. Let's look at our data. Okay, I don't see any duplicates here. At least so I don't think. Pure ID. Interesting that none of these have pure IDs. Though they should. Not sure why they don't. That is very weird. Interesting. Washington, I'm just selling Medicare and chilling through September. My goal is 120 policies. Nice, man. Yeah, I wish you the best of luck with that. I mean, hopefully, you get to that 120. Maybe you might even get more than that. Who knows? Yo, what's going on, programmer? How are you? Welcome to the stream. How are you doing, my friend? Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with this. Something strange happening. Duplicate entry, empty string for key users .idx. I don't know what this error even means. Number 7. Smiling Robot, welcome to the stream. How are you, my friend? How are you doing? Thank you, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for stopping by. Let's see. Yeah, I'm probably just gonna drop the whole database. I don't know what the issue here is. IDX number 71. Don't think we have any users with the IDs like that. But I mean, I probably won't be able to drop all of these users individually. But that's weird though that the username is not there. Something really weird is going on, though I don't know if it's just data grip being weird or users. Let's see. So okay, so I think you know what happened. This is what I think happened. I think what happened was I switched the Node.js branch. So right now over here, or I switched the NestJS branch. Yeah, I switched the NestJS branch to message pagination. And for this repository, I think what happened was, if you look over here, the entities, user itself did not have a username. So I think what happened was it synchronized the entire database with the latest entities, which does happen with type-orm if you have synchronized true. And when I switched back to the main branch, right? Yeah, so all of our data got pretty much screwed up, which is not good. So we probably should practice using migrations. But lesson learned right over there. Yeah, so I think we'll have to kind of drop our entire database, which is fine though. I kind of really want to drop the database some time ago because some of the data got messed up with the other usernames I was using, but it's fine. We'll just recreate the database and then that's okay. Let me just fix something with my branches though. Yeah, this is fine now. Let's see, get branch. Let me remove all these branches. Image storage. And let me remove this because I probably won't even need to worry about that, honestly. Because we just literally rewrite that from scratch. Is it because usernames are all empty? No. It's because, like I said before, we switched to the other branch which had the old entities. So the old user entity did not have the username field. So when you rerun the application, type-orm will synchronize the database with the current entity, which does not have the username field. So when I switch to that branch, it pretty much removed the entire username column, and I switched back to the master branch, added that username column back again, so all those fields were null. As you can see in DataGrip, they're all empty over here. So that's why it's complaining about the duplicate entry. But it's fine though. In production though, you definitely don't want to use synchronize. You definitely don't want synchronize set to true. But let me just remove all of these branches. And yeah, I'm not going to switch branches ever again. We're staying on the main branch right now. Okay, so that's fine though. I like using like new data, so that's totally fine with me. Okay. So we'll have to pretty much recreate our entire accounts again, which is totally fine. So Anson the dev password. Okay. Logout works. So we want to add pagination for messages. So I'll have to create another account right now. So let's go to collections, auth, register user. Let's create Sarah. Just, random names, doesn't really matter what the name is. Login. And let's go ahead and send a friend request to ourselves. Let's accept that. Alright, and let me open up an incognito window. Hammer88, welcome to the stream. How are you doing, my friend? Let me open up an incognito window. And let's just chat with each other across the incognito window. So, hi. Okay, so basically we'll just spam a little bit. Of course, the rate limit. Let me just temporarily disable the rate limit for now, so that way I can just spam a bunch of messages because I want to work on the pagination. So we'll go over to messages, message controller. We will go ahead. Skip throttle, I guess. Just comment this part out. Skip throttle. Yeah, that's fine. Create message. Yes. Yep, that's fine. So spam. Alright, take it easy, Murat. Catch you later. Just keep spamming. And for messages, we can honestly, fetch 100 messages at a time, honestly. Could maybe even do 200. I don't really think that'll be too much of a problem, though. Maybe we probably won't do that, though. Maybe we'll do 50. But I'll be right back real quick. Just gonna run to the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back. Alright, back. I totally forgot about incognito mode. I usually test with 2 different browsers. Yeah, incognito mode is a great way to test your app. I made Chua Chatbot, but the rate limit of send messages is too annoying. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. I don't know how many messages this is right now. It should be probably a decent amount to test the rate limit. Well, you can just go to the database and figure out right over here. We only have 1 conversation right now. Seems like there's about 53 messages currently, and they're all in the same conversation, which is fine. Maybe we'll send a couple more. So try different types of messages. I think we should probably try one with. Yep, perfect. Okay. Spamming. I don't know if you guys can hear my keyboard that much. Apologize if it's too loud. Alright, let's see. Should be 142, okay. Probably spam a little bit more. I could also maybe try duplicating some of these things, maybe. Let me try. Let me see if I could duplicate some of these rows. If it'll even let me. Probably might not. I don't know if that's even possible, though. Do you want to try making a rate limit for every group? I don't really think. I don't know, honestly. I think maybe that might probably be a little bit more difficult to manage. But I don't even think it would be a good idea to do that, though. Because, you know, then that just gives the opportunity for someone to just spam every single group. And they could just create a bunch of groups, spam every single one. It'll be equivalent to, you know, spamming the API without a rate limit, in my opinion. Okay, I think this will be fine for now. So we'll try fetching 50 messages at a time. So, okay, yeah, this is fine. Let me just make sure we're on. Yeah, so we're not really changing anything on the back end. Front end is, yeah, okay. So let's just refresh this real quick. And let's open up our logs. So if I go to console. Now, if I scroll to the top right now, you're going to see that it'll say scroll to the top. So we know when we've scrolled to the top, which is good. But what we need to do is we need to manage pagination. So what we'll do is we'll go into our... Give me 1 second. We'll go into... let's see. We'll go into the backend section real quick. And let me also do one more thing real quick. Let me just zoom up real quick because I need to be able to see this. All right, that should be way better. You guys should be able to see this. Yo, Black, what's going on, man? Welcome everyone to the stream. If you guys haven't already, make sure you guys drop that like button. We're at 13 right now. Let's try to go for 100 likes within the next, 2 to 3 hours. I know that we can definitely do it. So make sure you guys drop that like button. It'll definitely help a lot with the algorithm. It'll help support the channel a lot. So make sure you guys do that if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate that. Thailander Lebin, welcome to the stream. How are you? But if you build the bot API, I need to create also. Yeah, I haven't thought that far yet, honestly. So not really a concern right now. At least not right now. But honestly, I don't really think bots will probably even work well with groups or private messages. They'll probably be better for servers and such, Like when you have your own individual like chat itself, like like a server is what we'll call it for now. But yeah. Let's see. Let me also just do this real quick. Let me just pin these two messages real quick so people see it. There we go. Perfect. All right. Okay. So Let's see. Get messages from conversation. This is the route that we need to implement the pagination on. So right over here. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So let's go over here. Get messages by conversation ID. Okay. This is where we want to implement pagination. Okay. So we need the query parameters, of course. So I wonder if I have to. Yeah, I definitely don't have that branch published on the repository itself. So no way. We're gonna check that. Theme name is called AU. Yeah, AYU is what it's called. So limit will always be 50 no matter what. We're not gonna allow anyone to change that. So limit will always be 50. Offset is the only variable that is going to be changing. So when you fetch the first 50 messages, the offset will be 0. When you fetch the next 50 messages, the offset will be 50. When you fetch the next 50 messages, right, the offset will be 100. And with the offset 100 and the limit of 50, that's basically page number 3. We're not really going to be concerned with pages, but I do think we do need to keep track of that at some point. I think, I'm not too sure, but we'll only worry about offset right now. Okay, offset number, parse int pipe. Offset can only be in intervals of 50, I believe, but because yeah, we definitely don't want the users changing that. But from the client, it won't never really be an issue. Okay, so limit will always be 50 no matter what. Offset will be in increments of 50. Okay. We can also add additional validation to ensure that the offset is in increments of 50 by using the modulo operator. We'll worry about that later, though. Don't worry. Okay. Let's see. I think what I'll do is a couple things. One, we gotta fix this. Though I think this is not. This is something. I think this is something to do with the branch. I think this is fine though. Yeah, this is fine. Okay, so one, I'm gonna change the signature to this. Get messages instead of get messages by conversation ID. Because, I just don't like having such convoluted function names, Get messages. There we go. So we'll fix this real quick because I just don't really like that. And let me just go over here. Change this real quick. Let's see. Yep. So let's just go ahead. The only change that yeah, this is fine. Oh shit, I forgot to commit this. There we go. Okay. Get messages from conversation. Probably will also change this name as well. Yo, what's going on, Aaron? How are you? Welcome back to the stream. Now, we never even use auth user, so I could probably just get rid of this as well. Yo, Icky, what's going on, man? Welcome back to the stream. How are you? I'm doing good. How are you? Okay, so let's do this. So we'll definitely need to refactor get messages. So let's see what we got to do. Interesting. My microphone doesn't pick up my keyboard. Wow. Because I put my mic next to my keyboard, and it did not pick up that sound at all. Interesting. So I guess it does. I guess it does a good job at not picking up outside noise. You know. I guess that's good. I'm good too. That's good to hear, man. And welcome back to the stream. I hope you're doing. I'm glad that you're doing well. You know. Yeah, I have not streamed for about 10 days, so you know, first stream back. Okay, so we'll change the signature of this. So instead of just ID number, it'll just be params fetch messages params fetch messages params. Yep. So we'll pass the ID as well as offset like that. Okay, pretty straightforward. And query will always be required. So in the beginning, the first time we fetch offset, it'll be 0, and we'll have to increment offset by 50. Okay. Now, another thing that we'll have to also take care of is how do we know if there's no more messages to be fetched? Well, when you fetch if you fetch the messages based on the offset, right? If the amount of messages returned is less than the limit, then that means there's. But actually, you know, we actually should also keep track of the pages as well, because that's going to allow us to know if there's any more messages to be fetched. So, even though we don't really have pages, technically we don't have pages. The pages, you can think of them, they're going to be kind of like virtual pages if you think about it. Yo, Mike, what's going on, man? Gamzy, welcome back. Yup, no clicky anymore, yeah. You can only hear it if I talk and type at the same time. Yeah, so we'll definitely, I mean, we actually don't even need pages. We could just do find and count, and we could just use the count to determine if there's any more messages that are to be fetched. So what we'll do is this. So first let's go into get messages. Okay, let's change this to ID offset. Okay. So what we'll do is So instead of find, we will just do find and count. So return this .message repository. And for the options, we definitely want to make sure we are setting the offset. But I try to remember. I think offset is actually skip. I think I'll probably rename offset to skip instead. Just for convenience. Or well, the query parameter will be offset, but we'll call it skip. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Might be a little bit confusing for some people, but it's okay. Did you code in 10 days? Any progress of chat? No, this is my first time streaming since the past 10 days because I was out for the past 10 days. Okay, so relations, author, attachments, author.profile, where, conversation ID, order created at desk. Okay, and we'll do skip. Limit is going to be take. Oh yeah, take is going to be 50 at all times. So I'll probably just do const take equals 50. We could probably do more later. For now, we'll leave it like this. And right now it's complaining because the return type is supposed to be array of message, but it's actually going to be an array that contains an array of messages as well as the count. So we'll have to fix that. So let's just do that real quick. So let's go to the interface, get messages, change the return type to. So it's going to return an array instead when you call find and count. And the first argument is just going to be a number of type number, which is the count, the amount of messages that are in that database. I think it should. I don't know how. Actually, no, wait. Hold on. Oh, yeah, it should be fine. Because it'll filter out and then count. So I think it should be fine. Yeah, it should be fine. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, I think it should be fine. We'll test it out with other conversations too, so don't worry. Where conversation ID and order skip take. Perfect. Yeah, these will filter it out. We'll change the return type right over here to. Well, we probably don't even need this because we already know the return type is supposed to be. Well, actually, the first element is array and then the second element is number. So let's fix that real quick. Oh, we got more spammers. There we go. Let's take care of that. Okay. So this will return the array of messages first and then the count. So yeah, so this will be, we'll do this. Okay, so we'll destructure this array. And what I'll do is I'll console log everything in the backend so you'll see what's going on. So right now, it'll only fetch 50 messages right now, as you can see. Or actually, we have not passed in the query parameters, so we'll have to do that. It's going to throw an error right now. Yeah, bad request. Reason why is because we are not passing in the query parameter, which we'll have to do. So on the front end, we'll need to take care of managing pagination as well. So on the front end, what we need to do, before we go to the front end, let's handle it on the back end first. So let's log in as Sarah. Let's search for the conversations that we have. Get conversations. So we have one conversation, ID number 1. Okay. Let's get the messages. So let's do get messages by conversations right over here. Pedro, how are you? Welcome to the stream. And so now, yes, we need offset. So we'll do offset 0. So you can see that right over here. If I look at the backend, you can see that the backend, it says 241 is the count, which is the number of results. And if you look right over here, well, right now there are 241 rows. That doesn't mean that every single one of those rows belongs to the same conversation ID. So it should, in theory, it should take care of filtering out it first and then counting it. But we can also test to make sure, because you always want to make sure you double check, right? So here's what we'll do. We'll create another conversation with someone else. So let's create a third user. Let's do Jane. Okay, let's log in as this user and let's send the friend request to Anson. Should receive it over here. Let's accept it. Okay. Now the socket's a little bit broken, but it's okay. Oh yeah, no, the messages are there. It's just that the way that we're fetching the messages is a problem. Okay. So it's a lot more difficult than we expected because, well, we have to deal with pagination as well as adding new messages to the front of the array. But it's fine though. But you can see that right over here we have more results. Conversation ID is number 2. And you can see that right over here. We want to make sure that it is still giving us count 241 for this result right over here. So let's log back in as Sarah. Get messages. Okay, the count should still be 241, which is based off of the filter result, not the entire result in the database, which is exactly what it is. That's good. If I log in, let's log in as Anson because we have 2 conversations, right? So let's do get conversations. 1, 2. So let's search for conversation number 2. Get messages by conversation. Let's do number 2. So I'm fetching the messages for conversation number 2. And if I look at the back end, you can see that the count is 6, right? And that's correct because there's only 6 messages where the conversation ID is equal to 2. Okay? And there are 241 messages where the conversation ID is equal to 1. So this is how we can use this to determine the offset and the amount of pages. Okay? So let's see. Here's what we'll need to do. Okay. So, I think what I'll do is this. Count, let's see, 6. Okay. So what we want to do is if count returns, well, here's the thing though. How do we know if there are more? Like the thing is, if count returns less than, I guess, I'm trying to think of it like this. Because we want to basically figure out if we're at the end of the page, right? How do we determine that? Well, you know, you have the offset, which is going to be, well, not offset, you have limit, which is going to be 50, right? And, you know, if the results returns less than 50, you know that there are no more records. There's no more messages to be fetched because you know that the messages that are returned based on the offset is giving you less than 50 results, which basically means that there are no more messages to be fetched. But what if there is exactly 50 messages? Basically, the amount of messages returned is equal to the offset. How would you know if there are more messages to be fetched? How would you know that? Now, I've done this before, but I'm trying to remember how I did it last time. Well, we get the total count, which is 6, right? Well, no matter what, we're always going to get 6. Well, no matter what, we're always going to get the count, okay? So, uh, we could basically do this. We can take the amount of result. We could take the amount of. Yeah. I have an idea here. Watch this. So messages.length is going to always be capped at 50 no matter what. Could be 50 or less. Could be 49, 48, 47, 46, 45, right? Count will always just be the max. Will just always be the amount of messages that are in the database, right? So what we can do is we can do this. If messages.length is less than or equal to 50, and actually, well, if messages.length is less than 50, which basically the offset, and it's not equal to the count. I guess that's what we probably would want to do. Or it's not equal to like we would have to also check to see if it's not equal to hmm messages.length is going to always be a max 50. So if that is of an increment of 50, then that tells us that so if messages.length is not an increment of 50, then that means that tells us that there are no more messages to be fetched. But if it is 50 though, we can always check the count. Do you only use sessions or do you have access? Yeah, we're not using any refresh tokens at all. At least not right now because we're not doing anything with that right now. Trying to think. The way that I did this last time to determine if there is a next page or if there are more messages to be fetched. I think it was based off of the page itself. But I'm trying to remember how I did it last time. Might need to look at something real quick. Let's see. Pagination can be a little bit annoying sometimes, but it's okay. We basically just want to make sure that we are determining if there are more results to be fetched. But I think the backend honestly just needs to worry about just returning the count and the results. I think that's all the backend really needs to do. And the front end could just very easily determine if there are more. Let me see. Const pages equals map.ceiling. Take the count to get the pages. Yeah, I think maybe we might need to I think maybe we might need to have some kind of virtual page system. Saitaya, how are you? Welcome to the stream, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Okay, so basically, if messages.length is equal to the offset, right? If messages.length is equal to the offset, right? Because offset is the max, and we need to see if it's equal to the offset. No, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Limit, my bad, limit, the limit, which is take 50. I'm doing pretty good. You can call me Sai, sure. So if it's equal to 50, which is the take, right? We need to let's see. And if I guess we can just determine the number of pages, but I definitely don't want to do anything with pages if I don't need to, though. I mean, another thing that we could also do is, another thing that we could also do is the moment that the API returns an empty array, we could probably just set can next page to false, which basically implies that there's no next page. Yeah, I guess we could probably do that as well. Basically, just keep fetching until it returns an empty array. Or yeah, so basically what we'll do is on the front end. Oh, so okay. So I think what we'll do is we'll just basically check to see if messages.length is equal to. Or we could just also set up our own page on the front end. But the user will never really see the page, though. It's just really just going to be for internal use. That makes sense. Because we can very easily figure out what page we're on by taking the ceiling of the amount of records there are, dividing it by the limit, which is 50, right? So you want to take the ceiling of that. So for example, if there are 241 records, divide that by 50, or your limit, right? That's going to give you, I think, let's see. I think 5, right? Because 241 divided by 50 will be 4 point something. It'll be a fraction or a floating point, 4 point something, right? And then you take the ceiling of that, because if you think about it, right, 50 times 4 is 200. There's still 41 messages on the last page, though. And after those 41 messages, there's no more messages left, right? And what happens is it'll take you 10 more messages to create one additional page. Because if you add 9 more messages, they'll still all be on page number 5. But adding 10 more messages will create another extra page, right? That one single message will be on its own page, page number 6. If that makes sense. And so basically, from there, 241 divided by 50. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, knowing what page we're on the front end. I just don't know if we want to do that if we don't need to. Do you still intend to upgrade to the new type or version at some point? But I'm not prioritizing that right now. Jishu, what's going on, man? Welcome to the stream. How are you? If you guys haven't already, make sure you guys drop that like button. I'd really appreciate it. Trying to, get to 100 likes, so make sure you drop the like button if you haven't already. Okay, let me stop this music real quick because I'm trying to focus on what's going on with this. I guess we could determine. Yeah, I mean, I guess on the front end, we could figure out what the page is. So what we could do is we could figure out what the current page the user is on the front end, and then we could check see if results.length or messages.length is equal to the limit. Limit is always going to be 50, right? And the current page is less than pages. That means that they can go to the next page. Or we can just keep fetching until messages.length returns results that are less than 50. But that means that if there's exactly 50 messages, it's gonna allow them to create one more API call, right? And now the problem here is that they won't be able to scroll anymore because we'll disable that. We'll only allow scrolling if that can fetch messages, or is there more messages flag is to true. The moment the API returns an array that is equal to 0 or less than 50, we're going to set that flag to false, which means that it will stop fetching for messages. Okay, so it won't really have any effect when we add new messages to the front of the array, right? Because that's all of those messages will be on the Redux store, right? And what will happen is if they leave the page and go back to the Redux store, right? Well, now here's the other problem. The other problem is that the pagination the parameters for the pagination will reset. So now we have to worry about pagination for each individual conversation, I guess. Because if we leave the current conversation, we're not leave the conversation. Like if we exit the route and we re-enter, right? Well, we don't. I don't think we refetch the message. I actually think we do refetch the messages. I think, and we update the store. So I think it won't really be a problem, to be honest with you. At the end of this project, will you release the application into production and integrate migrations? I feel that in these tutorials, there's almost no information in this step. No, I'm not going to release it to production. Okay, so I don't know why I am returning the original ID, but we'll have to figure out why we are doing that. Yeah, so another problem that I also noticed is that if we were to refetch, that would probably ruin the pagination as well. So I think maybe we might probably need to set pagination for each individual conversation. So, for example, you can see that right over here, messages fetch rejected. Uh, every single time, if I were to go to a different conversation, it's going to fetch those messages. So if I go here, right, it will basically fetch those messages again, which is currently what it's doing right now. That's the current behavior. So I think for each conversation, we might need to implement their own pagination, which is going to be extremely frustrating. But I think it'll be doable, though, in my opinion. It is doable. I don't know how far we can go with this. Yo, what's up, Lassie? How are you? Fetch conversations, thunk. Yeah, this is actually a lot more difficult than I thought because, if we, because if you think about it, right, the pagination, there's different conversations, of course, right. Now the thing is, I also don't think it'd be a good idea, honestly. You know, the way that I think of it, is this is how I think of it, right. I don't think it'd be a good idea to have pagination for each conversation because what if the user scrolls all the way to the top, right? And then there's like thousands of messages. Then you leave the conversation, or not leave the conversation. You exit the conversation. You go to a different one. You paginate it again. That's like maybe like let's say another 500 messages, right? The Redux store is just going to be extremely large, and it's just going to have a lot of data. And I don't really think that'd be a good idea, to be honest with you. And I personally think that we probably should not have pagination for each individual conversation because one, that's going to be annoying to maintain. Two, um, you're going to preserve every single message. I think if the user exits the conversation and then they go back to it, probably should just have them scroll up again and then allow them to search for certain messages, I think. So I think I'm gonna probably just do that instead. I don't think it'd be a good idea to, because if you want to build an app, like if you want to have your application work like Facebook messages and be extremely laggy as hell, yeah, go ahead and add every single message to the Redux store and see how far that gets you. Because the moment you click on a conversation on Facebook and then click on another one, it just freezes the entire application. You can't even, it's literally unusable. So I think it's better to reset the pagination. Do not save those messages. My opinion, though. Man, I really don't like how the moment I turn up my thermostat, it just like by like only like 6 degrees, it just gets really hot for some reason. Turned it from 68 to 74, and it's like it feels like it's burning right over here. No idea why though, but I guess Arizona, it's also hot outside as well. Be right back though. Back. So I had to turn down my thermostat a little bit because it was just getting really, really hot. I only turned up by like 4 degrees, but that makes a dramatic change. But it's okay. Okay. So let's try this. Yeah, because it is refetching the messages all the time. Yeah. For now, we'll leave it to refetch the messages. 50 limit. Then they'll have to rescroll again. Of course, we'll add search features as well to search for the messages. But searching for the messages will be a little bit complex, right? Because, when you search for those messages and then you jump to that message, right? You'll also have to allow the user to be able to... It's kind of like, you want the user to be able to see the messages upwards and downwards, It's kind of how it is. But, why is there no keyboard cam? I just don't have my camera plugged in right now. You can make like when the user changes chat, then only flush the store. Else if he exit and return, just reload from where you left off. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. So we definitely need the ID, we need messages, and we need counts 100%. So we'll have to change the type. So data, fetch message payload. It should really be called fetch messages payload. So let's just go to types, React. Here. Account is going to be a number. And we do need to... Do I even ever even use this? Yeah, right over here. Okay, yeah. Inside API.ts. Yeah, that's fine. Yep. Let's go over here. Let's go over here, fix that there, and then go over to here. Okay. There we go, fetch messages payload. So that will return the count and everything. So it will fetch the messages, but of course right now it's not going to render them out because actually it should though, I think. Oh, actually no, it didn't. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So let's see. Where do I want to store this? So let me see. Where am I storing messages? Let's look at states, messages. So we have group messages, we have messages, and we have conversations. Yeah. So I think message state is where I want to store this. Yeah, it's probably where I want to store this. Messages, conversation message is where. Message type, yeah. We'll do this first and then we'll worry about other stuff later. The search text can be tricky since you may need to search unloaded text in DB. What you can do is just preview, but when user click, load all subsequent until that chat index. Yeah, when we get to that, we'll worry about that later. Let's just focus on this right now, though. So messages state probably will add the pagination fields over here instead. Don't think anywhere else would make sense, but this would probably make the most sense right now. So, okay, so we definitely need to keep track of the offset, which is going to be a number. Beginning will be 0, of course. We'll definitely need can next page. This is going to be Boolean. So in the beginning, we'll probably set this to true. I think that's the default value. And then as soon as we see that it returns an array of messages that gives us less than 50 or 0, right? As soon as it gives less than 50, basically, right? So if there happens to be exactly 50 messages, right? And of course, when we fetch those first 50 messages, we know that there's going to be no more messages if we fetch again. So we'll have to basically do another API call. And that'll basically return an array that is, of course, going to be less than 50. And then, we'll just basically set can next page to false. And that'll basically stop fetching messages. Okay. So offset, I think this should be fine. In terms of the count, we probably won't want to save that. We don't want to save that because if we save it, it's going to go stale and we'll have to update every single time. That doesn't make any sense because, when you send new messages, it's going to increase the count anyways, so it doesn't really matter, right? Yeah. Now, I wonder how would the pagination affect. Yeah, another thing that I think about is this, right? Because if let's say, for example, if you fetch the messages, or let's say, for example, you fetch the first 50, right? And then you send, let's say, 10 messages, right? If you were to add the offset by another 50, I think that would be wrong. You know why? Because, well, let's say, for example, you fetch the first 50. You send 10 more. There's currently 60 messages that the user is seeing, right? By the time you reach the database, and if you have the offset of 100, it's going to include the same messages that were already there. So I think what we'll need to do is we probably will need to change the offset based on the messages that are sent by the user. Because, right now, this situation is only working if we don't send any messages, right? But if the user does send messages, then that obviously screws up the offset a lot, right? And you'll end up fetching data that is already in the Redux store, and you'll end up having duplicate keys, which is going to give you a bunch of errors. So I think what we'll need to do is we'll need to keep track of the number of messages that the user is sending. So if they send 8, right, and we fetch the first 50, so the next time we fetch, the offset should actually be 58, right? Or yeah. So I wish sometimes I had like a tablet so I could draw this out, but I will write this in a notepad so that you guys can see. So if you see over here, first fetch offset equals 0. Okay. And if you send, let's say, 20 messages, right? And now again, like if you do second fetch, the offset theoretically should be increments of 50, as we said before. So the offset should be equal to 50, right? But the problem here is that in the database, it'll have an extra 20 messages. So when you do the offset of 50, right? Well, it's going to include those 20 additional messages that you had added, I think. Yeah, I think so. Because, well, basically, if you think of it like this, right? You're adding 20 new messages to the database. So the offset really happens to be 30 instead of 20. Because it's going to include those 20 messages that were already sent already. That's going to be fetched again. So that's why the offset needs to be messages sent plus 50. So it'll be 70, right? So that means that those 20 messages that we sent, plus the interval that we're fetching, right? It could be 50, could be 100, could be 200, doesn't matter. so that's basically going to be the new offset. So we'll do so basically in the SQL query, it'll basically do offset of 70, right? And that's totally fine. Offset will be 70, take 50 as always, right? So this will basically skip those 20 messages that we just sent, as well as the first 50 messages that we already fetched, and then it'll basically take the next 50 messages from 70 to up to 120. Okay. Of course, this is the second fetch, right? So now let's say if we send another 20 messages, the offset should actually be, right, messages sent, of course, which by that time we'll have to increment the number of messages sent. So that'll be 40. So third fetch will be third fetch. Let me put this. Offset equals messages sent. So by this time it'll be 40, right? So we'll do 40 plus let's see. Well, the new offset will be 70 at this point. Actually, well, we already have 70 already. And we want to fetch the next 50. So I guess offset would be equal to 20 plus the current one. I guess it would just be an extra 70, I guess. I don't know. This is kind of tripping me up a little bit. Current offset will be 70, right? If you send 20 more messages, that means the offset will have to start at 90. Otherwise, if you leave it at 70 plus 50, that'll include the first 20 messages, the new 20 messages you sent. So offset should be 20 plus current offset value 70 plus 50. So 140, right? Seems about right, I think, right? Because if you think about it, if you minus those 20 messages, right, that'll give you 100. And if the offset is 100, that means you're on page number 3, right? Because, like I said, page 1 offset is 0, page 2 offset is 50, page 3 offset is 100. But of course, we have to account for the new messages that are sent. Okay, so let's say if we send 100 messages, fourth fetch offset will be 100 plus the current offset, which is 140. Right. Plus 50. So that'll be 290, I guess. And of course, if you take 290 minus 140, that's going to give you 150. And 150 is the offset for page number 4. So yeah, I think that's pretty decent. Yeah, I guess pagination when it comes to chats are definitely a lot different than when it comes to just like regular clicking on like the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because I've done the numbers before and it was a lot different than doing it this way. Because you have to account for new data that's possibly being added, right? Because you can also fetch the messages as well as send new messages as well. So you have to account for that as well. So the formula basically looks like this. Offset is going to be equal to messages sent plus 50. It will always be plus 50 plus current offset plus 50. So I guess the formula would be this. Okay. So that's kind of going to be our formula. So on the first fetch, well, message is sent is 0, obviously. So 0 plus current offset is 0 plus limit is 50. So, well, actually, no, that's not right. Wait, no. No, that's not correct. First fetch is always going to be 0. Second fetch, let's say if messages sent was 0, of course. 0 plus 50 equals 50, right? Let's say on the third fetch, we've sent 20 messages. 20 plus 50. Stripping me up. Let's see. Zero plus 50 equals 50. Are you implementing pagination? Yes. A lot more difficult than I expected, to be honest with you. 20 plus 50 equals 50. That's, yeah, so messages sent, current offset. Okay, hold on. Every single time we fetch the current offset, okay, so the current offset in the beginning will be 0, of course. On the second fetch, the offset will already be 50 because at the end of each fetch, we'll increment the offset by 50. I guess the reason why it's tripping up is because I have these two same name. That's why. Instead of message sent, how about the ID of the first message sent? Because if you have multiple chatting, it's going to be hard to track. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because then the other user needs to also keep track of the messages that were received. Yeah. I guess. Well, I mean, that's fine because we can just add another variable, message sent plus messages received, right? So we can keep track of the number of new messages sent, keep track of the new messages received, and then add out the offset, right? So let's say so the first assumption that we'll make is the conversation is, it's just full of messages, but no one's talking, no new messages are being sent, right? So first fetch 0 plus 0 plus 0 equals 0. Okay. So fetches the first 50 messages. Conversation. So we'll use WebSockets to, of course, handle this. So it'll affect both users. So now, okay, so second fetch. So let's say this is when we had not scrolled. Let's do another one. Let's do messages sent 0, messages received 0, but the offset is just 50. Fetches the next 50 messages in conversation. So total in the Redux store. 100 so far. Add 50 to offset. Okay, let's do a third fetch. 0 plus 0 plus 100. 100 means we're on the third page. Fetches the next 50 messages in conversation. Add 50 to offset. Total in store. 50 messages. Cool. All right, so now let's say after the third fetch, we have sent 10 messages, received 10 messages from the user. So total messages exchanged and received was 20. We probably will just keep this under one variable though, or we could just keep it under both. Doesn't really matter. So 10 plus 10, so that's 20. Plus the current offset. So the current offset after the third will be 150. So this changes this to 170 as the offset. So yes, this makes sense because 150 would be the next offset. But the reason why we need to add 10 and 10 is because if we don't, when we do skip the offset, right, the first 20 messages that we get from that offset of 150 will be the last 20 messages that were fetched from the third iteration, from the third fetch, if that makes sense, right? Because like I said, the database will have already the next 20 messages, or the 20 new messages that were sent and received, right? So if we don't account for that, it's going to give us the last X amount of messages exchanged from the last fetch. So we have to add this. So this is equal to 170. So fetches the next 50 messages in conversation. So the 50 will always stay constant because that's the limit. That's never going to change, right? Add 50 to offset. So total in store at this point should be, I believe, 170 messages. Okay, so because whenever we add new messages, whenever we receive a message and send a message, we add it to the Redux store. Okay, so total in store is 170 messages. Fifth API call, let's just say 0 plus 0. Let's make it easier for us. Now we have to add the next offset. Well, we have to add the current offset, so that's 170. Okay. But here's the problem though, right? Oh yeah, well, hold on. Yeah, this is add 50 to offset. Yeah, okay. So this will be wait. 100 at 50. Okay. So we used 170. Yes. Add 50. Okay. Yes. So add 50 to the offset. So now the offset should be 220. Okay. Makes perfect sense because if you think about it, right, if we subtract 220 with the messages that were exchanged, which is 20, 220 subtract 20 is 200. If the offset is 200, we're on page number 5, right? Yep, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, okay, so I think, yeah, I guess I'm just having trouble understanding what this number is, 50. The number itself, this number, 050, should be the offset that is being incremented. Okay, but the reason why I'm having trouble understanding is because this total. I guess I should really rename these two because it's kind of like tripping me up. I guess I should call this increment. Yeah, I'll call this incrementer. Increments. Yeah, I think this is a pretty decent formula. So this will handle messages sent and messages received, right? Because of course, yeah. So it'll be 1-to-1. User sends a message, other user receives a message. So both users will have consistency when it comes to the message being Uh, send and received. Okay, wow. That's a lot of notes that we had to take. Yeah, so this should handle. Yeah, so of course, yeah, and of course, if we never send or receive messages, right? These two variables will always be 0 no matter what, which is fine. So it'll always just increment by 50, right? So increment 50. Okay, add 50 to offset, 50 to offset, 50 offset, 50 offset, right? And we just basically keep, and of course, if the user refreshes the page or if they visit a different page, right, everything will just reset back to 0 again, which is fine, right? Because we don't want to have different paginations for different conversations, because that hard to maintain, and two, you're gonna end up having a ridiculously large Redux store if you have lots of conversations and lots of messages saved in the Redux store. It's gonna use up a lot of memory, basically. Right? And those messages can contain lots of data like attachments, right? Probably not a good idea as well. Let's keep them all in the Redux store. But let me see. Yeah, so when they visit a different conversation, everything will reset. So the offset will reset, messages sent, message receives, those counters will reset. And then when they revisit that same one back, it will just fetch the first 50 messages again. So that way it'll prevent stale data as well, because they could exit the conversation and also receive, more messages, right? So we want to avoid stale data. Because otherwise, if we wanted to manage pagination for each individual group and conversation, you're going to need to basically tally up the number of messages that were received for that specific group, which I guess is fine. But, it'll just be a bunch of O of N operations with arrays, or you could use a map as well with the Redux store. But lots of planning and lots of thinking, which is not bad, it's part of the process, I guess. All right. In theory, this should work. But Hammer 88, you did make a good point about the messages being received though, so I'm glad that you brought that up. But yeah, adding an extra variable should be fine. Basically, we could just listen to the WebSocket event and just update the store based off of that. Yeah, should be fine. Give me 1 second. Talk about stale data. I still can't solve the chucking error with Angular. Oh, it's that. Okay. Yeah, I think these are good notes. Damn, I didn't really expect it to be this difficult. But here you are. It is pretty difficult. It was pretty difficult. So I won't. I probably won't count. I probably will do this. Offset will be set to. Offset will basically be the actual offset, and we'll have the increment 50. I'll call this counter. It'll just be increments of 50 at all times, no matter what. In the beginning, it'll be 0, of course, right? 0, 0, 0. Okay, so So instead of creating two variables, I could just probably do maybe just one variable message exchange every single time a message is received or sent for a specific conversation. We can basically just increment that counter by 1. But of course, we need to also make sure that messages exchanged is being incremented for let me see. Well, I guess it'll be fine because, like I said, this will always reset no matter what. So, yeah, I think it should be fine. Can we make this from Python? Yes, you can. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. This will be a number, so we'll have one variable that represents this. We'll rename this to this, though. Yeah, I think that's all we'll need. Give me one. I'm gonna use the bathroom real quick. All right, I'm back. Just have to use the bathroom. What are you currently doing? We're trying to implement pagination, which we were able to figure out a solution. So we're just working on that right now. I wrote out this whole notepad, all of these notes. That should be very helpful. In theory, it should work. I hope there's no other issues, but we'll get it to work. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll handle the easiest case first. Basically what we'll do is we'll make it so we'll ignore messages sent and messages received. We'll only focus on incrementing by 50, and we won't consider the exchanged messages at all. And then we will consider those. So this will just only be if the user is only scrolling and not sending or receiving messages at all times. So we'll handle that case first because that's the easiest case, and then we want to make sure that it works, and then we can add the more complicated feature. Okay, so for counter, this will always be increments of 50. So here's what we'll do. We'll add a reducer, and I'll call this increment message pagination. I should really call this pagination counter. Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe pagination offset. Yeah, I think maybe I should encapsulate all of these in their own object. I think maybe like maybe I should probably do that. Pagination, maybe something like this. Offset 0 number counter number. No, exchange messages will be in its own thing. Next page. Yeah, I think that's fine. I think we'll do that. Yeah, so we probably won't have offset. Probably won't have counter. Okay. I definitely don't want to make a new slice for the pagination stuff though. We could if we really need to. But I think it just makes perfect sense just to keep it in messages state. Is it possible to make the font larger? Yeah, sure, I could do that. Doesn't hurt to do that. Is that better? How was the traveling? It was good. It was good. I had a lot of fun, honestly. I had a lot of fun. Yeah, hopefully that's visible. Okay. I don't know. Maybe I could keep this pagination stuff in its own. So here's what I think. So now that I think about it, I could keep the pagination in its own slice, and then basically with pagination, I can create pagination for private messages and group messages, right? And I can also manage it for other stuff too as well, because we're gonna have pagination for everything. We're gonna have pagination for messages, private messages, group messages, fetching conversations, fetching groups, right? So I don't know, like I could keep it in its own slice and then have all that managed there. Because what I'm thinking is, well, for each pagination, we could if I were to implement pagination for each specific conversation, right? Well, it wouldn't really make sense to keep it separate from message state, because then you run into the problem with, um, yeah, I don't know, running to blank thoughts. It's okay though. We will figure it out. Don't worry. We will figure it out. Yeah. Wondering if I want to put the pagination in its own slice for messages, because the pagination for group messages as well as private messages are going to be the same. It'll use the same offset, same counter, same can next page. Same exchange messages. Um, hmm. Hmm. Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I could move this into its own slice and just manage it through there. 'Cause all I gotta do, I don't really need to exchange messages inside here. I can just keep track of that in the pagination, and that's totally fine. Yeah, I guess that's fine, I guess. Because that's fine. Yeah, I guess that's fine.